Hello, everybody. How's about that Daredevil Born Again, eh? Oh, sorry I'm a few minutes late. We were watching episode 1 of Daredevil Born Again, and I wanted to make sure it was all watched. I'm so excited for that show. Oh, it was so good. Oh. But there we go. Ah. How are we doing? You guys all good? Good evening. We are live. It is Wednesday. The daily content continues. So much content. Yeah. I hope you're all good. I finished my content for the Emperor's Children stuff. Finished that last night. And I did something pretty cool. Something that I hope you guys will be interested in. I'll show you. See if I can get it to focus straight away, shall we? So I painted a Emperor's Child in 8 paints. And it's a metallic scheme. There you go. How's that? So we have a metallic Emperor's Children scheme painted in 8 paints. So, you know, if you want to get your sets done quickly, you will be able to. Look how good that looks. I'm really impressed with it. I think it looks fantastic. I just need to finish the rim of the base. But that does mean we are now... I've done all of them. You know, I did this guy. We started this guy on Monday. There he is. Boom. So there you go. Is that contrast over Lead Belcher? No. It is contrast over Iron Warriors. Thank you very much. Lead Belcher. Get out of here. I'm joking. I'm joking. But yes, no, it is over Iron Warriors. But you'll be able to see that video and many more over the coming days. But for now, tonight, no, don't leave Sly Guy 77, please. Can I ask one question? Will you maybe paint more high elves, spearmen, or archers? Maybe. Yeah, if I can get some, and I have the money to do so, and the time. But at the moment, I'm lacking in all 3 of those things. So it is unlikely for the foreseeable future. So yeah. I bet I still don't have all 8. There's always one new paint I need with each new tutorial. Chris, my friend. Okay, I'll tell you what the paints were. They were Black Legion, Stormhost Silver, Iron Warriors, Striking Scorpion Green, Luxion Purple, Eandan Yellow, Druki Violet, and Reichland Flush Shade. That was the paints. Primed in Grace here. Very simple. Oh. What the hell was that? Piece of paper. You don't have Striking Scorpion Green? Well. Where is the Sterling Mud? It's not being used on the Emperor's Children, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Do you think we'll be seeing a Krieg upgrade sprue like they have for Cadians? I need a tank commander. No, I don't think we will. Otherwise, they would have released it at the same time as the other Krieg. No Tyrant Skull. No. The basing's done in the same style as the Noise Marines video. It's Armageddon Dust, Berserker Bloodshade, Kislev Flesh. But that doesn't matter when it comes to painting. The amount of paints it takes, because you might base it completely differently. But yeah. Hell's Last joining the Militarum ranks soon, Josh. I bought them. They haven't turned up yet. I'll try and do them if I get some time. But they haven't arrived. So tonight we are answering the question that I get asked all the time. which is Lahmian medium versus contrast medium. What's the difference and what's the point? Biscuit from the beard, I think it was. Hello, Mr. Warhipster. Sorry to ask an out-of-context question. Would you still recommend a 6:1 contrast medium to Shyish purple mix for Demonette skin? I would, and I would also recommend the multiple other ways that we've done it so far. So basically, I'd pick one. I think that is a valid recipe for painting Demonette skin. I also think that just using Druchii Violet is a valid recipe, as is using Dreadful Visage, as is using our mix of Magos Purple and Apothecary White. I'd pick something. Yeah. I would recommend it, but I would also think there is a couple of other ways that you could also do it, which we've also done on the channel. Some that might be quicker, some that might be easier, and some that might look better to your eye. Basically, watch more of my videos. Is there an EC Demon Prince on the way soon as well? I have bought a Demon Prince. It is here. Again. Time. I need time to do it. Plus, I need to know that that's something that you guys want to see. So if there's enough appetite for it, I can bump it up. But if it's not something you want to see and nobody cares, then it becomes a difficult video for me to make. EC demands you pay the tithe. Okay, listen. I was the first person on YouTube to have a box art Keeper of Secrets video. I'll have you know. I think I could hide a Twix in mine. I think I can hide, like, a full... I could probably hide a chocolate beer in my beard. A chocolate beard? A chocolate bar in my beard. I just haven't tried. So, tonight, as I said, Lahmian medium versus contrast medium. Because this question comes up a lot. Because I think people get stuck in the trap of... it says contrast medium on the pot, so that's the only one you can use. And it is not true. And I'm going to explain to you why. And the differences that there are between the two. And you can make your choices from there. I'm going to try my best. And I must start by saying, this is not scientific, okay? This is only just my experience of using the paints and the techniques. And that's kind of the vibe, you see. So, like, to me, it's kind of, it's, anything that I say is not really going to be like, oh yeah, no, that's scientifically exactly how it works. This is just how what I've observed by using it, I should say. Think we'll see some more MESBG this year? I think we will, Lincho. I think we will see definitely Hera on horse, on plastic, and we'll see Bolg. Ventress Dark, thank you very much for becoming a member. And I realise I missed a member's message from Ricky Drinks Paint, who's been a member for 22 months. Legend. Thank you very much, Ricky Drinks Paint. But thank you very much, Ventress Dark. That's very kind of you. Let's update this. This is on 409. Congrats on 80k. Thank you very much. 2 parts contrast medium to 3 parts Lahmian medium. What would happen? You would have no colour. You would have a mess. Oh. Of your own making. Okay. I'm trying to think about the best way to start talking about this. Because I will record this, and I will... Are we still talking about Lahmian and the medium? We haven't started yet, Colonel. This is the in-depth topic of conversation. Congrats on the 80k. Thank you. Thank you very much. 80,335 to be precise. We're doing good. You guys are killing it, by the way. Kicking ass by subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, watching the videos. You guys are doing amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of the support. We are shooting for 100,000 subscribers this year. We are hoping to at least apply for the YouTube silver plaque in 2025. Because it might be that it gets to 31st and that's when it happens. In which case I can just be like, give it to me. And it will arrive in 2026, but 2025 is unlikely. But we shall see. If you couldn't drink Coke Zero, Emily, what would replace it? I don't know. I'd probably just try and just stick to water and Ribena. This is what keeps me going. You know, this is my only caffeine intake, is Coca-Cola. I don't drink coffee or anything like that, so I don't do hot drinks. People of the chat, the like button needs your attention. I agree. I agree. These steams are life. Thank you, Artistic Outlaw. Steam? Coke Zero mixed with contrast paints. No, I don't think that would do very well for my system. Okay. I'm gonna pause the music. And we're gonna minimize these for now. I don't think we'll be talking about this for the full 2 hours of stream. But we are, like I said, I am going to record it. We will turn it into a video if that is something you guys want to see. If you don't want to see it, then just let it be known in the chat. Okay? I mean, you're seeing it live. So you can ask questions throughout this. And there might be things that I'll miss while I'm talking about it that actually, if you ask questions, really, really helpful. So you'll be helping me out and you're helping yourself out as well. Yeah. So we're just going to be talking about contrast medium and Lahmian medium and why you would ever want to use either of them for any reason whatsoever when painting your miniatures. And also the reasons why I use them the way I use them. Because they do, fundamentally, they do the same thing. Okay, they are a medium. And a medium is basically a paint without any colour in it. Okay, so this is paint. This is paint. It just doesn't have the same sort of pigment in it as that. Okay, so this is just blank that. Okay, in its essence is how medium works. Okay, and why would you want to use such a thing? Well, you could use it if you were really technical. You could mix your own pigments into this to create your own colours, as it were, which is something you could do, for example, with there's something called I have it over there. It's like the Artificer set that Games Workshop made, which is literally just pigment that you can just add to things. And the examples they give in that is you put the blue in some silver, and that's how you get Alpha Legion silver. That's, you know, it's cool. But you could put it in that, for example, and make a, you know, you could make a, depending on the ratios of that, this would be a full pot of this would be 18 milliliters. You'd probably have to do a little bit of 24 milliliters actually is how much is in there. You could put your, you know, you could mix a pigment into that and create a very, very thin wash, for example. But that's what these are used for, okay, is basically thinning paint. Now, a lot of the time you'll get told to just use water because water is free. Well, not free, but water can be. You're already paid for it, right? If you pay your water bill, you've already paid for it and it comes out of the tap. And water is a perfectly good thinner for your paint. And I think generally a lot of people understand that to get thinned paint and to get it on nice and smooth, you thin your paints down when it comes to your base and layer paints because they're a lot thicker than a contrast paint, which is very, very, very liquid. It's very runny. However, water is water, and these are paint. So, when you're using a medium to thin down your paint, you're thinning down a paint with paint to create thinner paint. is basically how it works, okay? And, well, contrast medium is contrast paint without any colour. And Lahmian medium is just, well, basically old formulated shade paint without any colour in it, if that makes any sense at all. It's very, very thin. And, well, we shall get into explaining this a little bit later on. We got some questions in the chat. Lahmian medium greater than contrast medium. Never managed to get contrast medium to work consistently. Lahmian medium just works, always works, and creates way nicer finish on my paint jobs. This is a good point here, Mr. Tumnus 1987. Now, contrast paints have a higher... To get it nice and smooth, okay? So this is where the thing with contrast paints, this is where the debate comes up with contrast paints, okay? Are they a tool to just slap paint on quickly to get your models done quickly? Or are they a tool to be kind of more measured with and create a sort of smooth paint scheme, but one that just cuts out a lot of time in terms of shading and stuff like that? The answer is they are both things at the same time, which is mind-blowing. But a tool can be two things at the same time, right? And that is what contrast paint is. However, one of the things with contrast paint is that if you are just going to slap it on but expect a really smooth finish, you're not going to get it. If you take your time, like I do, you will get a smooth finish, but you're no longer slapping it on, which means you're slowing down the process in that regard, but you're speeding up in the regard that you're not having to shade and this, that, and the other, and that. There's lots of trade-offs, and there's kind of benefits to both and this, that, and the other. So the question that often comes up is, why wouldn't you just use like a base paint to paint in the base colors and then shade it? And it's like, yeah, you could do that. You absolutely could do that. There is a trade-off to that, because in my workflow, if we're using Mephiston Red, and I always go to Mephiston Red as an example, but if we're using Mephiston Red to paint a Blood Angel, and then we shade it, we can either recess shade it, which is time spent, or we can shade it all over. But at that point, we're going to shade it, and it's going to be a different colour to what it originally was. And if Mephiston Red was the colour that we wanted it to be, we have to relayer it at that point anyway. In addition, when you are painting with base and layer paints, it generally takes two thin coats, because you don't do it in this measured way, because you don't need to. You just brush it on, and it'll leave like marks and slightly see-through bits, and you'll see brush strokes, but then you put your second layer on, you get a nice smooth cut. So in that instance, when you're doing your base and layer paints, you're going for two coats, a shade, and possibly a relayer if that's what you're going to do. Whereas contrast paint, you will do one layer, generally. If you do it measured in the way that I do it, you don't have to do the shade and relayer, okay? Now, the caveat to all of this is that requires a different style of painting. And if you aren't used to that different style of painting, this is where the mediums now come in. Okay, so contrast medium, famously, you get dark spots, you get not contrast medium, ignore that for the moment. Contrast paint, famously, you can get dark spots, you can get patchiness, you can get coffee staining, you can get all of this kind of thing. And that comes from the technique that's being used with the paint. This is contrast medium. And contrast medium will make your contrast paints more contrast paint. So you take one drop load of Blood Angels Red and one drop load of contrast medium. What you get is a half strength Blood Angels Red. You've diluted it, but it's still contrast paint. So if the technique before is what was slowing you down, so you're still getting the dark spots, if that's the thing that's putting you off, not pushing you off or pissing you off, both are appropriate. If the technique of using the contrast paints is you're slapping it on and you're using a contrast paint and you're thinning it down with contrast medium to somehow make it a bit easier, all you've done here is you've lessened the strength of your Blood Angels Red. But it's still contrast paint. It still works the same way, okay? Now, Lahmian medium, on the other hand, well, it's not contrast paint. That's just like thinned paint, okay? Now, this will not create more contrast paint. What it will do is it will interact strangely with the contrast paint in such a way where it will thin it down and it will dilute the colour, but nowhere near as much as contrast medium. And we'll get into the reason why I think that happens in just a sec. You still with me, chat? Ragnaros, thank you very much for the $4.99. Congrats on the 80k. Do you give advice on custom paint schemes? I certainly can try, Ragnaros. Depends what you're after. After. Ad break. This show is brought to you by my beard. It's not. No, we're gonna do some mucking about with a palette pad to illustrate some of these points. But are you guys still with me so far? Are you kind of is that useful at all? Hope it pays you a lot for sponsoring. No, if anything, it just drains money from my account for existing. Following so far. Good. Yeah. And you do think it is useful. Excellent. So, what we're going to be doing over here is... Which, remember this piece of palette paper? We're going to be using this one now to do a little. We're just going to be adding paint. What I need is an old shade paint. I think. Do I have any? I'm certain that I do. Oh, I do. I have gloss paints. They're not going to be ideal for this, though. I think I have some in a pot that's like hidden in the middle of nowhere, but yeah. I want to do a Death Knight / Lich King scheme on CSM. I was curious how you do the bluey grey or do a video on it. That's a good question. The bluey grey, as in the Lich King himself, Arthas. Lich King. World of Warcraft. It depends kind of how dark you want it to go. Because, like, I find often with that scheme, actually what you end up wanting it to be is quite dark, but still be bluish. Any chance you can use Creed camo? I could certainly try Captain Yid. Creed camo. We can do it with Creed camo. Yeah, that's fine. Seeing what GW did in their last contrast paint video with the Saurus Warrior turning orange using the reaction of two complementary colours rather than using already orange colour, do you think you will explore a little more of these techniques? I haven't seen the video. So I don't know. But I have done a lot of that. Are you saying they layer paints up to get a different colour, Rudy? Because we do that quite a lot. What's the big difference between the old shade and new shade paints? We can go into that. We can go into that a little bit later. I'll have to use an old shade paint to do that, but we can do that. As in, I've only got gloss ones, which they essentially wet blended with two contrasts. Oh yeah, no, we do that all the time. We do that on stuff like flames and stuff. Yeah. No, we do it all the time. Sorry to disturb your subject on live. Oh, it's all right, Ragnaros. Don't you worry about it. Your super chat, you get get answers to your questions. That's how it works. Okay. Basically, the vibe I think you're going for, Death Knight / Lich King scheme, it's a bluish grey. I think what you're wanting to do, and kind of do correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically looking at like a bluish black, unless you're looking for a bright blue grey, in which case you're looking at Space Wolves. And I don't think you're asking about Space Wolves, are you? Do correct me if I'm wrong. Just about to start your Archaon tutorial. Any tips for painting the big lad? Have fun with it. Take it a section at a time. Don't try and do it all at once. Because that way madness lies. And yeah, just have fun with it. It's a good one. It's a good model to paint. But yeah, just be measured and take your time. It will take a while, but be measured and take your time with it. Because if you, like I said, if you try and do it all too quickly, it'll just run out of it'll just run out of room. You'll run out of road, which won't be particularly fun. Thinking maybe Basilicanum Grey with Drakenhof Nightshade over it or something. So I think, depending on how blue you want it to be, I think what you're better off doing, Ragnaros, is you're better off starting actually probably with thinned down Black Templar. Just thinning it down just a little bit, sort of maybe 1:1 or 2:1 of a medium and Black Templar. That'll give you a better grey that has blue elements to it over Basilicanum Grey, which has sort of brownish elements to it. Once you start thinning down, well, if you start with Basilicanum Grey as the base, it's hard to get the blue to shine through over the top of that. If you start off with thinned down Black Templar, you get a really nice bluish grey. Then what you can do is you can accentuate it. And what I would suggest is either use Tyran Blue, which is a really vibrant blue, but will actually read as blue over the top of it, or use another contrast paint that actually reads as blue, because Drakenhof Nightshade does not read as blue. It's not. You could use Space Wolves Grey, for example, or you could use Space Wolves Grey is just better. Drakenhof Nightshade. Drakenhof Nightshade has got way too much kind of, to my mind, to my eye, purple in it. So yeah, I would give that a go. But just I would recommend just testing it, like with all things. You can test it, and you'll have fun with it, I'm sure. Right, should we do a little bit of... Let's do a little bit of work, shall we? Let's do a little bit of filming. So, what we need is Blood Angels Red, and we need Mephiston Red. Okay, so I'm going to get those open. And we need Blood Angels Red. I think that's what we need. And we need to do Creed Camo as well. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten it. Okay. So, here's the thing, right, with contrast paint. We've done a little bit of this already on the channel, but what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you the difference in a contrast paint, right? So, I've got Blood Angels Red open, and those who are live with me right now will understand, but I'll do this with Creed Camo to begin with. If we take a brush load of Creed Camo, okay, and we apply this on our piece of palette paper here, right, and we just give it a good zhuzhing like this to try and separate out our pigments. There you go. What you can see is we have our darker color here and we have our lighter color over here, and these both exist at the same time in Creed Camo, hence why it's a contrast paint. So when we apply it over the top of a model, we get this in the darker recesses, hopefully, and we get this on the flatter panels based on how we apply things. So this is important because contrast medium is the same, and you won't really see this on the palette, but with contrast medium, if I load up my brush with contrast medium and I zhuzh now next to it, like I said, you shouldn't be able to see anything, but other than maybe whatever's residue from my green paint that was in there, you see a little bit around here. There will be a heavier concentration over here, and there'll be a lighter concentration of it over here, and because I've separated out the two pigments, okay, and that's what contrast medium does to contrast paint. So if we combine those two things together, and we take a big brush load of Creed Camo, and we apply this on the palette like that, wash our brush, and then take a big brush load of contrast medium, what we now have is a 1-to-1 mix of Creed Camo and contrast medium. But if I zhuzh again, as you can see, what we now have, lesser concentrate over here, lighter over here. Compare the two. Okay, so this is half strength Creed Camo with contrast medium. All right, but what we've still got there is you can see, it's slightly less, but you can still see my brush marks in here. They're much more pronounced there, but you can still see them in here. And that's okay. That's not a problem. But we do still have two very distinct different sets of pigment right there. Two different colors. This is just the half strength version of that. Now, if we use Lahmian medium instead, what you'll see is you'll see a more consistent color across all of it in general. So we'll take a big brush load of the Creed Camo and we'll apply this just here like that, and then we'll wash our brush and take a big old brush load of Lahmian medium and we apply this. Okay. Now, what you'll see here is a much more defined edge around here, okay? Because we're not kind of thinning down the two pigments at the same time in two different ways with the contrast medium. And what you'll see is that this kind of feels a little bit more kind of like slightly different to this one. It's not a huge difference, but there is a slight difference here in that what we've done here is we've basically mixed the two pigments together using one medium to create a sort of paint that still does the same effect, okay? And you see it's a little bit more cloudy around here as opposed to a little bit more kind of like sort of a little bit more brushstrokey over here. And of course this is without any contrast medium in it, any medium in it whatsoever. And the reason being for this is, and this is why I generally use Lahmian medium, and we'll get to more reasons as to why that is. But what I want you to do now is just have a quick look, right? So if I take a brush load of Creed Camo on my brush here, you can see how kind of, and this is a full brush load, you can see how kind of bulbous my brush load is. Now I wouldn't now paint with this because this is way too much paint. We've talked about that before here on the channel. You don't want to have this much paint on your brush, but you can see how bulbous that is. And if I hold my brush like this, you can see a drip sort of start to appear at the tips of the bristles, but it's not really going to drip out onto my finger anytime soon. It's clinging to those bristles in that respect, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Now, if I wash the brush, if we do the same thing with contrast medium, again, similar size brush load, you should see, actually we need a little bit more on there, just grab some more, there we go. So you should see that a drip will start to form. You see how bulbous my brush is at the end. A drip will start to form, but it's not going to drip out onto my hand because it's just clinging to the bristles. Just hold it. Again, this would be way too much paint to paint with, but there you go. It has exactly the same properties as before. Whereas if we do the same thing with Lahmian medium, if I really load the brush up, what you should see is it will drip on my hand eventually. It's really kind of all collecting towards the end. Again, way too bulbous. I wouldn't recommend painting with that, but it's very difficult to film at this angle. Oh, we lost it. Come back. See how much space there is between the bristles and the medium? That is clinging on for dear life. It's proper drippy. In fact, if we go to this camera here, you might be able to see it. Come on. There you go, kind of. Yeah. So basically, it's a lot runnier, Lahmian medium. And that's why we use it. Well, at least that's why I like to use it. Because what it does is it makes the paint feel way more familiar to paint with. And contrast medium makes more contrast paint. So if using contrast paint is the thing you struggle with, Lahmian medium helps you eliminate more of that contrast aspect. Ragnaros, thank you very much for the 10. You're the best. Many thanks. You're the best. I appreciate that. Lahmian medium makes a contrast paint a normal paint. Sort of, but not really, because it's still contrasting. But it makes it thinner. It makes it more liquidy. So, essentially, like, if you picture... what would be the best way to talk about this? It'd be kind of like if you were to, let's say you were making a tomato sauce and you used some tomato puree, right? If you have the tomato, if you start with, like, if you have tomato puree and you add more puree to it, what you get is thinner puree. But if you add water to it instead, what you get is thinner. It would become much more liquidy as opposed to more puree, as it were. So what contrast medium is really good for is creating weaker colour. What Lahmian medium is good for is creating more flow improvement. If that makes any sense. And that's basically why I use it more often these days. Now, that's not to say that Lahmian medium doesn't have any dilution effect. It does have like dilution effect, but what contrast paint has, and we think we've already talked about it tonight, but as we've kind of mentioned here, and we'll go back to this overhead just here. What contrast paint generally tends to have is two different colours in it, 1 and 2, like that sort of thing. And you can see, like, this is the same order of things. So this was no medium, this was contrast medium, and this was Lahmian medium. I'm not sure how well the camera will represent it, and you can test these things yourselves, but you can see, if I do that kind of thing, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is starting to run as opposed to this that isn't. So what we can do is if we go 1 Blood Angels Red, 2 Blood Angels Red, 3 Blood Angels Red, and we go 1 with Lahmian medium, 1 with contrast medium, and 1 without, and then we kind of drag race them. There's your Lahmian medium. There's your contrast medium. And that's without. So again, you see how we still have the two colours, red here, red there, red here, red there, red, and red. That's your drag raced mediums right there. So that's your Lahmian medium doing that. That's your contrast medium doing that. That's without any contrast paint in it, without any medium in it whatsoever. So as you can see, this has flowed a lot. This has flowed a lot easier than that has. If that might be the best representation of Lahmian medium versus contrast medium. What do you think? This makes me excited to paint Space Marines with contrast paint plus Lahmian medium. So it's better to use Lahmian medium if someone has problems with patchy contrast on flat panels, for example. Kinda, yeah. That is kind of how I would sum it up. And in order to kind of lessen the effect, okay, in terms of the dilution, or maybe got the slightly different kind of coloration and this kind of thing, what you will generally see me do in some instances, you will see something like I will use 4 parts 1 paint plus 1 part Lahmian medium, and that is to get this kind of extra runniness. You can see how that Blood Angels Red has distributed itself a little bit more now that it's flat. Again, if I was to do this, it would probably start to run towards the bottom again. There you go, it moved again, and that moved again, but there you go. I mean, it kind of sums it up a little bit, doesn't it? So just tried this with a Keelian green, and I can definitely tell you what you mean about how Lahmian medium improves the flow. Exactly. So given that what we've talked about with contrast medium, and this is by no means is this an indictment of contrast medium at all. Contrast medium is excellent medium for creating different colors within your contrast paints. So when you add contrast medium to a paint, when you add contrast medium to a contrast paint, you will, by very nature, it will be runnier because there's more of it, okay, and it's half the color, but it doesn't have as strong a flow improver as Lahmian medium does. But conversely, Lahmian medium doesn't have as strong a dilution effect as contrast medium does. So the question is, what are you after? Are you after an improved flow, or are you after a diluted paint? And in most of the case, for me, I'm after just a little bit of dilution, but much more improved flow. So in the example of the Emperor's Children, and we did this in the how to come up with the contrast colors thing, we're looking for a nice smooth paint because we're going over smooth armor panels, but Volupus Pink itself wasn't quite right. It was too strong, so we needed to thin it down just a little bit. So in that instances, I added 2 brush loads of Lahmian medium, 1 for the flow improvement properties, and 2 just to bump up that dilution a little bit. Now if I'd gone for a 1-to-1 with contrast medium, it might have done the same thing. However, if the struggle out there is the dark patchiness for some of you guys, then creating more contrast paint isn't going to solve that, because that's a flow problem, right? So that's kind of the gist, as it were. Any other families of paints where mediums are useful? Shades. Yeah, no. So shades shades you can thin them down. With the difference between, and there's a question earlier about what's the difference between shade paints and new shades and old shades. Basically, what I can sort of half show you, because I don't have a decent range of the old shade paints. I have a couple of old gloss shades, but the difference between them is basically the old shades were a flat shade. It's just one color in the pot, and the build-up of said color in recesses is what gave it the impression of having a dark paint. But it's very, very liquidy. It has the same texture or viscosity. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the same viscosity as Lahmian medium, which is very, very runny paint. But it is just a single color that's just very runny that you're using as a shade, which is why you'll often see in kind of things like heavy metal recipes, they'll say we make a shade out of Corvus black, and what they're doing there is they're just thinning Corvus black down significantly using a medium to make paint. Because water on its own, for whatever reason, and again I don't know the science behind it, but water can, in some instances with some paints, it just starts to separate things because it's introducing this kind of just neutral liquid in there that stuff will just float in at different weights, whereas the paint is still the same thing. So whilst it can separate a little bit, it won't separate as much as water will do, which is why I don't recommend using water with contrast paints. On IG you said some guy threatened you. What happened? Mitchell! It was this time last week. I was doing one of these very streams on how to avoid splotches, blotches and scratches. Somebody was very cross that I was doing it. I shouldn't be doing this. I should just be making videos. Which one makes it taste better? Jelly tots. Excellent medium. They might appear again tonight. Who knows? That would be exciting. So an old shade paint is basically just a flat color. And again, this isn't going to be a great example, but an old, because I've only got gloss ones which have a sort of glossy element to them. But this is Reichland Flesh Shade gloss. This is Reichland Flesh Shade, and if I just grab some Reichland Flesh Shade gloss and just apply it on the palette like that, you can see it's mostly a flat color. Whereas if I use Reichland Flesh Shade, the new formulated version, and I do the same thing that we do before, you can see how it loses power over here. So you got that darker bit here around the outside where there's heavier, and this is just like a flat thing. So shade paints act in the same way as contrast paints do now. They're just much thinner and less saturated than a contrast paint, which arguably makes shade paints better because you have those two kind of pigments in them basically. But it means that the heavy pigment should run into the recesses when applied, as opposed to kind of all just lying flat across a surface. I mean, this isn't a great advert for it because again, this is a very old gloss paint. So that's got heaviness in it anyway. But basically that's the difference between the old and the new. They're just much less less strong than a contrast paint. Will this week's Learning with Josh become a video too? It may well do. Been painting up Lord of the Rings Mordor orcs thanks to your tutorial. I appreciate all the work you put in for us. That's very kind of you, Mitchell. Have you ever thinned your paints with hot dog water? Death Factor. Death Factor asking the real questions here. No, I have never thinned my paints with hot dog water. And it depends what you mean by that, but neither of them. Limp Bizkit fans. Whee! What do you do with your dirty paint water? Drinking it makes me feel funny. I throw it in the sink, is what I do, and then replace it with clean water. Do jelly tots add vibrancy to the paint? Oh mate, you're missing out. If you're not dumping jelly tots into your paints all the time, seriously, don't do this. Do not do this. Some paints are a solid paint molecule suspended in a chemical to allow them to adhere to a surface. The water is easier for the solid molecule to bond to it, so it draws them out of the paint. That's some science for you. There you go. Does that help answer the question? Lahmian versus contrast medium. If that helps answer the question of what do the two do when it comes to contrast paints, fantastic. The answer to whether you should use one or the other is there isn't a yes or no answer to that question. There isn't a you must do this and you must do that. These are tools at the end of the day. They can be used for a multitude of different things. Okay, so Lahmian medium can be used to create glazes in base and layer paints. It can be used to just thin your layer paints and base and layer paints. It can be used to thin down your shade paints. It can be used to thin down your contrast paint. The effect it has on all four is slightly different, but you can use Lahmian medium for a bunch of those things. Contrast medium, you could also use that to thin down base and layer paints. What it won't do is create a contrast paint out of a base paint. Because if you just add contrast medium to Mephiston red, where's the darker pigment coming from? It's not. So you're not going to be getting a contrast paint out of it. But you could still use it to thin down the Mephiston red. It's just slightly less, I guess, slightly less kind of versatile in that respect. But there isn't a do this and do that. And that is the answer to the question, and that is how you should always do it going forward. These things are obviously malleable, as the way they should be, you know. So the reason to sum up, basically, the reason I use Lahmian medium is to improve the flow and have slightly less dilution than what I get from contrast medium. The reason I would use contrast medium is because I actively want to dilute the paint and get a different colour from it. Is basically it. Is the reason I do it. But the reason you may do it are completely different. But that's the difference between the two in a nutshell. As I have observed. Like I said, it's not scientific. It's just experience. You know? Yeah, there you go, Captain. You could sum it up that way. Absolutely. And like the ratios may change for you. And when I use them in the video, the way I do them, this is the way I use it. You know? Not sure if you've used this or not, but do you know if Army Painter's speed paint medium is more like Lahmian or contrast medium? I have used Army Painter's medium. I'm not experienced enough with it, but I believe because it's speed paint medium, it will be like contrast medium. Not that was Lahmian medium. It'll be like contrast medium, but it's speed paint's version. So it'll be all the qualities of speed paint without the colour in it. And I think the same goes for the Vallejo Express stuff. But I have in the past used, in a pinch, when I was doing a 24-hour stream, I used airbrush thinner. I used airbrush thinner on my Sylvaneth stream to thin my mix of Sidewall Brown and Black Templar. You can't see the video, unfortunately, because I was an idiot and didn't understand how YouTube worked. But I used this instead of using medium, and I just used airbrush thinner to do it. Airbrush thinner is basically just, well, it's just medium, basically. But as it says here, dilutes colour without loss of adhesion, resistance and consistency. It's recommended to add 1 to 2 drops of thinner to 10 drops of paint. That's basically what we were doing. You can use this if you want to. You can use any other thinner from any other point. Essentially, like, I would just look at the two colours, you know, the two mediums. And if I show you this through the camera, you can see a difference between the two, okay? Even if we just look at just the colours, the paints themselves. So you see how this is much cloudier and this is much more kind of, you can see them. I mean, my camera's a little bit blown out. Let's try and do that. So you can see how the paints are moving. You can really see Lahmian medium there. Contrast medium is a little bit different. If I give them a shake and we open them both up and we look at it that way, you see how one's almost like water, one's a lot milkier, it's a lot thicker. It's because that's just contrast paint in there without any colour, and that is not. You can see how they wobble. You can see, oh god, I poured it all over the place. That was always bound to happen, wasn't it? Well, that, you have to pay for that kind of content, I'm afraid. Clip that one. Yeah, clip it. Oh. Is there an ideal option for thinning metallics? Yeah, Lahmian medium is really good for thinning metallics. The thing with thinning down metallic is anytime you add any kind of thinner to it, you will generally see the paint will look like it's separating, and it is, but it's not all separated. See, when it looks like it's all separating out to its different colours, you just need to zhuzh it with your brush and it just goes back together again, because it's all held in the same kind of it's all held in the same membrane at that point anyway. It's not like kind of leaking out at the bottom. It's not got a skin on top and there's a different paint that's wet underneath. The whole thing is just kind of separating like this. So I find Lahmian medium works really well for thinning down not contrast paint, metallic paint. But water also works really well for it. Water's free. You know. The thing with first live stream on YouTube with a money shot, that's correct. I will show this before we not wrap things up, because we're going to stream for a little bit longer, but I will show this before we're done with the kind of Josh talks. The thing with thinning down paint is, and we'll come real close. That's really dark. Why is that really dark? Let's do that. That'll do. Okay. So the thing with thinning down a bit, and we'll use a metallic for this. We'll use Iron Warriors, my favourite of the metallics. And the consistency you're aiming for when you're thinning down your base and layer paints. Let's find a corner of this that isn't covered in a paint. Let's go just there, shall we? If we grab a nice big dollop of Iron Warriors and put that there like that. Now, whilst it's not thinned, if you draw your brush through it, what you'll see is a very obvious chasm in the paint, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so what we can do instead is we want to use just a little bit of water to avoid that chasm happening. So we take a touch of water and we do that kind of thing just to thin it down, and then we check to see if that's thinned enough by running our brush through the paint again. And you can see very obvious chasm again, so it's not quite thin enough, so we just need a little bit more. So we add a little bit more water. There we go. And now, when we run our brush through, what you should see is it will start to repurpose behind the brush's brush stroke, like that. However, the question was also about what's the ideal way to thin it down. Well, if we just add loads of water to this, and we'll even throw in like a bit of that as well, what you should see over time is that will start to separate. So you can already see it starting to do it. I realise this stream is now just people watching paint dry. This is what you asked for. So you can see these like veins of silver here, but you can also see this grey in here. This is the paint sort of starting to separate out, because the metallic is, you can see it's really dark over here and slightly lighter over here. Okay, this is because the silver, the shiny bits are the heavy bit, right? And this is generally the color. Like, you'll have a shiny silver bit, and then you'll have a color in there, which is the lighter bit, which is how you get the thing. So you can see it's sort of starting to separate out here. There you go. Now, sometimes people would say that this paint is ruined and is unusable because it's all separated. It's not true. All you need to do just mass it up again, and it'll start to do the same thing again. But this is still the paint that we're after. See, it starts to do it over here, around here. So we can just give it a zhuzhin. Then we can continue over here on our model, as it were. If this is ideally thinned, what is thinned slightly more than usual, which you've used on things like Hallowed Nights? Yeah, okay. We can briefly talk about that. So thinned more than usual is like 3 or 4 parts water is usually what I say. And that's because we're trying to get ourselves a glaze consistency. And we'll do that with something like Mephiston Red. So what we'll do is we'll take our little dollop of Mephiston Red and put that there. And then we're going to take 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 parts water. Okay, so this is now really very runny, and if I do that thing where I pass my brush through it, that will just, you can see it there, it's gone. It's now repurposed itself. Thin slightly more than usual, right, is what we're trying to get to. So we're trying to get to kind of just a thinner sort of glaze consistency, like that sort of thing. And you can go even further than that. You can just use a little bit more water. That's 5, and then if we go for another bit, we go 6. What we're looking for is really thin, and that's way too much paint on my brush. We're looking for just thinner coats all the time, just taking a little bit, as opposed to Mephiston Red straight from the pot, which would look thusly and thusly, essentially. There you go. Lahmian medium, basically, in those instances, Lahmian medium would be the thing I'd recommended to thin down your base or layer paints, just because it's that's the paid option of water, basically. There you go. That was a bit of a winding session. But there you go. That is the answer to the eternal question on the Warhipster channel of I thought you could only use contrast medium with contrast paints. There's nothing stopping you. Put whatever you want in contrast paint, but here's why I use Lahmian medium. I hope that answers the question. But yeah, we are... So Lahmian is rich people water. Yeah, if you thin every paint, if you thin everything, if you do classic painting, you thin everything with Lahmian medium. That's rich person painting. Also note, the more you spread your paint out on the palette, the quicker it will dry. There you go. So that's kind of one of those things that I thought I knew, and now that you've said it, I'm like, I should have known that all along. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't, you know, the question comes up of why do I use a wet palette? No, I don't use a wet palette. The reason why I don't use a wet palette is you're introducing more water and more thinner to something that is already quite thin, and you can't control that thinner. Once you add the paint to the wet palette, you're no longer in control of the paint, which is fine for a base and layer paint because you can add more medium and stuff to create those glazes and stuff. But for contrast paints, you want to be able to control how wet it is. So if you start adding like Blood Angels Red, for example, if you start adding that to a wet palette, you're getting thinned down Blood Angels Red, so it's not as impactful. So if you then apply that over the top of your miniature, it won't look like mine if I'm using Blood Angels Red straight out the pot. You see? Because you're diluting your paints, basically. Which in base and layer paints, not a problem. Because, you know, you dilute them anyway to use them. The more you dilute them, the weaker the effect. But if you took one brush load of Mephiston Red and 10 brush loads of water to paint Blood Angel's red armor, just to paint the armor red, it would be really thin paint, but it would take you many, many strokes to get it up to Mephiston Red, which is why generally you'll see people just be like, when they're doing like the base colors, there will be just a little bit of water just to make it flow a little bit better. Should we get some tunes on? Will, thank you very much for being a member for 21 months. Incredible. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Where's the tunes? There it is. What will you do after you run out of standard paper like GW palettes? GW don't sell now. It's a good question. I am prepared. I will find an alternative. But I did buy 5 of these. As soon as they announced that the servo skull was going to replace the palette, I was like, panic buy. Is this the time to ask about the differences between old and new shade paint? We did just answer that, Canal. I don't want to do it again. Any tips on brush care? I feel like contrast paint eats up my brushes, even with water and brush soap. It'll be the bit where I'm talking about... I do it with Reikland Flesh Shade Gloss and Reikland Flesh Shade. Just after that is when I did it, Canal. You can just use a piece of glass or tile. I certainly will. If I have to, I'll move to a glass or a piece of tile. I did want to get my own. I did want to make my own palettes, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. As in, like Warhipster palettes. Just like a matte piece of maybe silicon or something. I don't know. Sorry, off topic, but have you done any Horus Heresy models? Vlad von Carstein, my friend. I have done many Horus Heresy models. Allow me to go on a journey with you. Let me find it. We have a playlist. It's here somewhere. We've done a bunch of Primarchs. We've done one of every Legion. Where is it? Age of Darkness, or is it Horus Heresy? What did I call it? There we go. Horus Heresy. So, we have done Sanguinius, Dominion Zephon, Fafnir Ran, Constantin Valdor, Saul Tarvitz, the Lion, Horus, Jagatai Khan, Magnus the Red, Sons of Horus, Blood Angels, Iron Warriors, Imperial Fists, Empress Children, Iron Hands, Word Bearers, Ultramarines, Death Guard, White Scars, Night Lords, Dark Angels, Alpha Legion, Raven Guard, World Eaters, Salamanders. We've done Thousand Suns and Space Wolves. We've done a Leviathan Dreadnought in Sons of Horus and in Blood Angels. We've done Rogel Dawn, Horus Ascended, Chinshar, Master of the Keshig, and Fulgrim Transfigured is the full list. And we've got more to go. We've got Mortarion and we've got Alfarius as well. Gonna watch this from the beginning, but just popping in because my wife asked me what the difference was the other day, and I kind of just made something up because I didn't know either. That's fair. Any tips for thinning layer paints to be used as base paints? I'm using Cabalite Green for some models of mine and it ends up too thin and I need a lot of layers to apply a base. Yeah, I mean, so not all base and layer paints are created equal, I'm afraid. Some base and layer paints are just thinner by their very nature. Layer paints definitely are thinner than your base paints. So your base paints are... The way Games Workshop has designed their paint range is that your base paints are supposed to be sort of 1 or 2, possibly 3 coats will get it done. Your layer paints are meant to be sort of 2 or 3 or 4 layers will get it done. The idea being that the layer paints go over the top of the base paints is the idea. But the layer paints... Often there is a colour in that you want to use as a base paint, which is absolutely fine. It's just that they are by very nature a bit thinner. Unfortunately the answer is the way we thin that paint on the Iron Warriors. When you pass your brush through it, you want to see that the paint starts to reform over the top of it. That's when you know it's properly thinned. And unfortunately, if that takes 3, 4, 5 different layers to get there, that's kind of the problem with base and layer paints, and that is, you know, the reason why I love contrast paint so much. Okay, so the example I'll always point to is yellow. Painting yellow is an absolute nightmare because yellow paint by its very nature is just very thin and patchy, and it takes a lot of coats to get it up to a strong yellow, whereas with contrast paint it takes 1 coat and you are done in terms of getting that blocked in yellow. This day and age, it takes me 2 coats with 2 different paints. I use Imperial Fist followed by Cassandora Yellow to shade it. But painting up, even with Avalanche Sunset, it's a base yellow. It's not the yellow you're generally going for because it's quite sort of it's a bit mustardy, Avalanche Sunset, and a lot of yellow when it's used in Games Workshop schemes isn't mustard colour. It's like bright sunshine yellow. So a lot of the time it's like you're actually trying to get to like Uriel yellow or Flash Gits yellow as being the actual colour of the yellow. But if you're having to layer up sort of 4-5 layers of Avalanche Sunset to get a good yellow blocked in before you then add the Flash Gits yellow, you're spending a lot of time for very little reward when you could have just used Imperial Fist over the top of a bright coat. There's a lot of grey names in here right now. Let's see if we can snipe some of you. Let's see, shall we? Gifting out some memberships. Oh, and we had... Oh, I think I missed it from earlier. Did Alan... I think I was recording at the time. Yes, Alan L. So sorry I missed it. You gifted 5 memberships. Alan, you're a bloody legend. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I missed that. Completely forgot. If you're still here, Alan, or if you're mad at me, I'm very sorry. Are you coming on Sunday, are you, Peter, rather than Saturday? I had it in my mind that it was Saturday. Are you coming Sunday? Both are fine. Can't wait to use your Emperor's Children guides. I'm not a big fan of the green, though. Any other suggestion? I might do Shaiish Purple. Not sure about the eyes, though. Shaiish Purple's a bit dark. I mean, it could work. I don't know. I don't know what I would replace it with. It's a lot of purple on an already purple scheme. You could go with purple, I suppose. Are you planning on doing pink? Loved all your recent EC videos. Very helpful. Son of excess. Actually, do you know what? I'm gonna show off a little bit here. Not that I'm not a massive show off all the time anyway. So these are all the Emperor's Children videos that are yet to come out. For those of you who weren't here earlier in the stream, let's just zoom out a little bit. Do that. So we've got a pile more videos yet to come. So we have done the Threnodic Choir. There they are. We have done the Glittering Myriad. There they are. We have done the box art, the pink. Hey, there it is. So That's the 3 of the ones that are in the codex. We've done this one, who again I've forgotten the name of. Hang on. They are called the Constrictus. So this is the Constrictus. There it is, Constrictus color scheme. You can see it's just a very slight, subtle purpling going on there around the edges. I really like this one. I think it looks fantastic. We have then got a classic purple and gold. There it is. Here, purple and gold. And then this one is the speed metallic paint that only takes 8 paints to do and is done in like 3 hours. If you don't have ADHD like me and you have to look out the window every now and then. Love the glittering one so much. Thanks, James. This one, Glittering Myriad. It's cool, isn't it? It's very different. I really like the purple bolt gun. I think it looks sick. One thing I'd like some advice on from your recent easy guides is using Druchii Violet on the metal trim. I found doing this makes the trim almost metallic purple. Am I going too heavy on the purple? Are you using reformulated Druchii Violet or old Druchii Violet? If you're using reformulated Druchii Violet, I would suggest that you're maybe going a little bit too heavy. There you go. We have done 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6 Emperor's Children schemes, basically. You've already seen this one twice, and you will be seeing it again. But yeah, these 5 will also be coming out. The lesser number of schemes, exactly. Sycorax Bronze and Warlord. Are you applying Sycorax Bronze all over a Warlord Titan, Alan? Because if you are a legend. Which is your favourite? See, I really like the box art. I really enjoyed doing the pink, getting the pink done. I think the pink is really daring. It's very different. It's very chaotic. It's very Slaanesh, and that's what I think makes it really cool. The Threnodic Choir is beautiful with the purple trim and the gold. And the Constrictus is really nice because I love that sort of really dark purple. Glittering Myriad is fun because it's very different and the gold looks great. I think there's just like there's elements of all of them that I really enjoy. Doing the metallic speed paint one, like I said, it was 8 paints, and I was like, hands off. We're not going to sit in edge high like this. We're not going to make this too long. And I was really impressed with how it came out. The silvery purple, just chef's kiss, looks amazing. I really like it. So yeah, I mean, look, you could do it's Emperor's Children. It's Slaanesh. The whole point is it's meant to be a riot of colour. It's meant to be hard on the eyes at times. That's how they always talk about it, at least in the lore. So you could do half of a unit as Threnodic Choir and half a unit as Glittering Myriad, and that would look absolutely on brand with Slaanesh. It's one of those armies that just looks really, and it's chaos as well. It's meant to be a little bit more patchwork, and I think by the very nature of the box art scheme being that sort of haphazard pink and black all over the place, it's not like pink legs, black body, or black shoulders and pink chest. It's not formulaic like that. It's pink whatever, black whatever, in terms of the armor. I think that just reinforces that idea that it is a bit more ragtag. It is a little bit more kind of, it's meant to be like, on your, it's excessive, right? It's, you know, that's kind of the point, which is very, very cool. I really like it. And yeah, I think there's a lot you can do with pink and purple, especially with the stuff that we've got. So yeah, I mean, I hope you'll find these videos as fun to watch and to inform you painting your Emperor's Children stuff, as I did. Black Legion and Luxion Dream, yeah. Luxion Purple, I've really fallen in love with it over Emperor's Children. I always liked it, but I always kind of shied away from it. I always thought Leviathan Purple was a better paint, but Luxion Purple, I'm like, It makes me want to do a mixture across my army, which seems so excessive. Well, yeah, it's very excessive. But that's, you know, that's why they've gone for garish green, pink patchwork, black armor. Sometimes it's leather, sometimes it's stretched flesh, all this kind of thing. It's meant to be like, it's meant to be a as it were. And like you see it when you look at, I mean, I don't know how often you guys have seen this, but look, it's not all pink, it's not all black. You just see it's like a, it's a riot, it's a carnival of excess, you know. It's just slightly all over the place, and that's the point, you know. Let me see if there's a bit of artwork in the book that will reinforce that. Like the double page spread. Those are always good. No, it's not a good one though. Oh yeah, that one will do. Yeah, look at that. It's just meant to be shocking, you know. Ah. Have you thought about adding a fiddliness to paint rating? I see something like the Lord Exultant and think, no way I cope with that. Same way as Clan Rats, all detailed. Liberators, simpler. We could talk about. We could try and do that. What, as in like at the end of each painting video, or would you want that in the sprue review? Your EC makes me think of the Joker. That is kind of it. It is kind of. There are elements of that in there. It's, you know. The Joker is somewhat of a Slaneshi agent in and of himself. Because everything is excessive. From the war paint to the humour to the violence to the mood swings to all of it. It's all dialed up to 11 because it's a show. It's a carnival. You know, and that's you know. Still think you should add a time to paint at the end of the tutorials like you do with time to build in the sprue reviews. Okay. Okay. That does involve me always running a timer though, and that will make me really anxious. Because I'll be like, you know, metrics, Josh. What do you mean? Oh, I see. Timer, number of paints, difficulty rating. You can see how that would add pressure unnecessarily. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, and this is the this is the slight thing with the time to paint thing, and it actually came up in a comment on one of my on the Lord Exultant. Actually, somebody asked me, how long does it take you to actually paint one of these? Because I see a bunch of videos on YouTube where someone's like, paint this in 10 minutes, and I always take a long time to paint thing, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And like, to me, that's kind of like, yeah, you kind of don't want to add that pressure on you, the viewer. If I say to you, oh, it takes me of just painting and drying time and not staring out the window time, but of you know, just painting and drying time, it takes me an hour and 10 minutes to paint, let's say, just that, right? I feel like that would add stress on you as the viewer to be like, well, he did it in an hour and 10 minutes, that I have to do it in an hour and 10 minutes. But I can, but that, I feel like that's a bit hard on the viewer as well. You know? It's an interesting debate, that one. I don't know if that, I mean, it would add pressure to me, but, you know, if that's what you guys really wanted to see all the time, then who cares about me, right? But in terms of, like, adding, I don't know if that would add pressure on all of you guys. Because on, like on an infantryman, I guess that would be fine. But, like, you know, there are occasionally big things that I've done. So something like, I don't know, Fulgrim Transfigured. And if I say, I mean, I didn't do this, but if I say, oh, I painted Fulgrim Transfigured in 8 hours, somebody might look at that and be like, are you joking? You know? Fiddliness rating as well would be one of those things, again, the question always comes up is, I don't know why people ask me this in this way, but the question comes up, is it better to paint sub-assemblied? And I'm like, did I do that? Because clearly my opinion is that it's not, you know. But that's different for me and for you. You might find things painting sub-assembly much easier than I do. I don't like painting in sub-assemblies because I don't like having to drill things, and I don't like having to hold things, and I don't like having to do stuff like that. I like to have the model on a painting handle. I don't want to drill holes in the bottom of miniatures to then paint a leg to then glue it on at a later date. I don't want to do that. Like, and similarly, I don't want to hold the bottom of a spear with my fingers like this to then paint it, because I feel like I'm not going to be accurate that way. If I'm holding, is a difference to me, for example, in the in again, stuff's all subjective, right? But like in the if I'm painting a prosecutor like this, right? I'm holding it there, and all of my physical habits when I'm painting come from the way I brace my hands and stuff like this. So as I'm painting this, my hands are braced on the deck. But if I'm having to hold the wing here, I'm no longer comfortable. My position in which I'm painting is no longer comfortable. So in that instance, I'd have to find a way to get that one wing on a painting handle, and in that instance I'm blue tack mounting, or I'm having to drill pins, or I'm having to do something else, and this, that, and the other. And for me, that's a lot of time spent to do something that isn't ultimately going to make my painting experience better. But that's just me. For you, that could be completely different, you know. Dahi McGibbon has upgraded their membership to Battle Hipster, legendary. And Maureen, thank you very much for becoming a member. That's very kind of you. That takes us right onto a comedy number. What about Titans? Do you paint them in one piece? Well, see, that's very different, isn't it? Because with a Titan, it's in a massive piece that you can hold in a hand. The Batman. My Alfie, where is he? He's over there. He's in his... he's arrived in his drop pod. I need to go and put him into the drink. My sequel movie will be here before him. No, he won't. I'm going to try. I'm trying Batman, I'm sorry. Pip2, number 42. Thank you very much for the one gifted Warhipster membership. That is very kind of you. Thank you very much. I just joined, but I have a question. When doing ratios like 2:1, how do you measure? Like, what tools or methods do you use? I use a medium layer brush. It's brushfuls. That's how I do it. I don't use pipettes. I don't measure out milliliters. I don't do anything like that. It's not as scientific as that. It's much more roughly. It's brush loads. So it's a brush load of 2 brush loads versus 1 brush load, and it mixed together with 1 brush load to give you that thing. That's how I do it. And I use the same brush every time. I use a medium layer brush to do it. That's the ratio, I guess, that in terms of the parts. So for example, I'm not using a medium shade brush to dump out two parts of one and 1 part of another and then do that. I'm using a medium layer brush because that's the brush I'm going to be applying the paint with. Usually, sometimes I go smaller in terms of the small layer brush, but we're not using mass amounts. We're just using the medium layer brush to do it. So 1, 2, and done. Ultimately, a ratio is just you using roughly the same measure each time. Yeah. I tried using a pipette one time to get contrast out the pot, and it just kind of separated weirdly. Yeah, so in that instance, probably what happened when you used the pipette is you picked up a lot more of the lighter pigment than you did the heavier pigment, which is the lighter color versus the darker color. So you got some separation and you got less of the mix and more of just the thing, because it is probably what happened there. Did you get a Sigismund? I didn't yet. He was still out of stock when I looked. Is he back in stock now? He's still out of stock, temporarily out of stock. Unless he came in stock and out of stock and I didn't notice, in which case that was bad. I apologise. I forgive my laziness, but will I find painting tutorials on warbands on your channel? I just bought a few because I like the individual characters and mostly into painting. Thank you. Like, which sort of warbands? Are you talking Underworld's warbands? That kind of thing? Because there are some Underworld's warbands on the channel. Yeah. So there should be... let me have a look. Is there a playlist for Warhammer Underworlds? I think there is. I'm not sure if it's complete though. We'll have a look. View your channel. Playlists. Underworlds. Warhammer Underworlds. Okay, yeah, I don't think it's all of them. But there is a playlist on there that has the Thricefold Discord, Cyrene's Razors, the Skinnerkin, the Brethren of the Bolt, the Ember Watch, Zicket's Tunnel Pack, Grandfather's Gardeners, and Jaws of Itzel. I'm pretty certain on the channel there should be some way, shape or form of... Yeah, there should be Sons of Velmorn and the Gnarl Spirit Pack as well. There somewhere. Brethren of the Bolt, did we say that? Yeah, no, they're on. Yeah. Yeah, they are there somewhere. There is a playlist, though, with those 8 in there. A little sad you didn't do the Rotmire Creed. They wear stilts. I have the Rotmire Creed to do. I just need to find the time to do it. I bought them. I bought them as part of the Maggotkin of Nurgle Christmas thing. So they're in there. May I ask, how would you paint the blade / weapon and maybe the hair of the Calidus assassin? Calidus assassin. This is the lady with the hair, isn't it? As denoted by the question, how would you paint the hair? The hair's a pretty easy one. Now, I don't know if you've seen any of my Gitmob videos, but the hair is pretty much the same colour as the red leather. So what I would do in that instance is I would use Blood Angel's red. I would then shade it with Reichland Flesh Shade. But slightly differently to the Gitmob is I would then go in and I would highlight it using maybe Squig Orange, like we did. Yeah, Squig Orange would work on that instance. As for the green power blade, I do have a bunch of Necron videos, which would be how I would do it. I would look those up to do that. Probably like the more recent ones in the form of Orican or Imhotep. I think they both had green blades. Pretty certain. Back to me. Orican the Diviner. Nope. Not what I meant to do. Orican. Yeah, he's got a green blade. You know, any of the Necron stuff, really. I mean, there's all kinds of greens and stuff, like on the Void Dragon video and stuff like that. Imhotep, he also has a green blade. Yeah, green blade. That would be how I would do the Calidus's blade. Huh. Chat's broken on my end. Refresh the page. There we go. Synthwave Emperor's Children's Speed Painting Guide when. Unfortunately, John, that's not something I would know how to do, and you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that guide from me, because it wouldn't do very well. As in, not that the video wouldn't do very well. I'm sure it would do very well, but I don't know how to do it, so it'd be me fumbling around. Have you painted a Vermin Lord Corruptor before on the channel? No, the closest I've done is Vizek Scour to a Vermin Lord. Did you manage to get Lady Elise Duchard? No. Games Workshop is supposed to email me when these things come back in stock, and as it happens, they just haven't. And I will assure you, I check my emails every day. We'll do better than Frecker. Rip, I know. I know. But that's it. That's the risk you take, you know, as a content creator. Some videos will just do better than others. And others will do really badly. Like Frecker, Lord of the West March. And it's not Frecker's fault. Frecker was only in War of the Rohirrim for about 10 seconds. Ahoy! I found myself in need of markers / tokens for my Cities of Sigmar army. Also saw your video of the army set from 3rd. Are those still kinda usable? Without knowing how they play now, I couldn't give you a proper answer. I don't see why not. Any of the 3rd edition tokens at any point should be fine. It might be that they're worded slightly differently or not quite right, but as long as you know what the key of what your tokens are supposed to do and you show your opponent as well what they're supposed to be, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use, you know, old Stormcast tokens, for example, to denote, you know, this one's been ordered to move, and so on and so forth. I don't know how to do it either. That's why I need someone awesome to do a guide. I'm sorry, John. I'm clearly not awesome enough. Otherwise, I would know how to do it. I want to paint my Tyranids with the colour scheme of the collectors from Mass Effect, but I can't quite figure out the chitin colour. It has a slightly grey-brown tinge to it. Any advice on a recipe? Let me have a look. The collectors. The collectors. Mass Effect. Let's have a look. It's quite wildly inconsistent, isn't it, in terms of the pictures that I'm seeing. Grey brown. I think the colour you are looking for is Rattling Grime. I think that's the one you're looking for. Rattling Grime is the paint you are looking for. They should have modelled him with a fist imprint on his face. I couldn't agree more, Cameron. Right, we have about 8 minutes left on the stream. That's 8 minutes to get 79 members. That's 10 a minute. I'm joking. I'm chomping at the bit for your Fulgrim guide, as it's going to be insane. Well, I hope so. I need to get the model in hand to see the model, see how it looks on the box art. I've got the pictures in the book here, but I just need to get the model in hand. I need to see how big it is as well, because like it's very difficult to get the idea of scale in just from photographs in the book, because you know there's all kinds of false perspective and things going on. You have like, you know, when it's the big battleground scenes, it's like just off in the distance, and there's things that are closer, and this, that, and the other. But I haven't seen the model yet, so I just need to get it and hold it, see what it's like. Looking forward to a painful tutorial for him. Oh, it will be painful. Like I'm convinced of that. I don't think it's gonna be I don't think it's gonna. I think it'll be a very popular video, as clearly you guys are very into the Emperor's Children, and I really do thank everybody for the support on the Emperor's Children content that we've released so far. Like I said, there's 6 more videos yet to come for you lucky ducks. At least. We do have a Demon Prince as well, as asked earlier. I bought a Demon Prince. It is here. I need to build it, prime it, and paint it, but we haven't got the time to do that at the moment. Maybe the week after next week is a possibility that we will get that done then. But I don't know, because I've got a lot to do between now and the end of next week. Daily content! Why must you be this way? We're pretty much, yeah. We've got what? We've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus tonight 11 videos, which would be, well, it's 2 weeks plus 2 streams, but there's a 3rd stream this week because of thingy. So yeah. Anyway. Please just do it in sub-assemblies. Watching you do some complex models fully assembled makes me sad because I'm terrible at painting. But if I do it in sub-assemblies, John, I won't enjoy it, and it'll look worse because I did it in sub-assemblies. Like, it makes it harder for me to paint that way. Like, painting in... Like, this is what I was saying earlier. Painting in sub-assemblies, for me, is more difficult. Unless it absolutely warrants it and it needs to be done, in which case then I will do it. But I don't want to hold a wing separately. I also don't want to drill it. I don't want to gap fill it. I don't want to do any of that, because for me it's too much work for an unpleasant painting experience for me. I will never stop anyone out there from doing sub-assemblies, but for me, if it doesn't need to be done, then I'm not going to do it. Because, like I said, it just makes it harder for me. I have to use my wrists all the time. So pinching a small piece like this to paint it is going to kill me. It's like when I have to paint something like Vizek Scour, because it doesn't fit on the XL base. I have to hold it like this. Or like the Gordrak was the same, because it's harder. All of my learned physical behaviours when I'm painting all involve me bracing in certain ways and holding my hands in certain ways. So the way I paint, like I said, I've gotten so used to this that is how I like to paint, and I brace my hands in certain ways. If I then have to sub-assemble a piece of rock or something, it goes out the window because I'm no longer physically comfortable as I'm doing it, and I have to do a lot of work to make it physically comfortable to use on this. So I just don't. I'm just not doing. And at the end of the day, for me, it's like that. I'm not gaining any benefit from doing that. I'm just taking a lot of time to do something in a way I don't want to do, basically. You look like you need bed, son. Yeah. I would love to. But I do not have time to sleep. Sleep is for the weak. I need any experience with metal GW miniatures. Yeah, I've painted quite a few metal miniatures. They're a lot more forgiving and also not forgiving at the same time. Metal miniatures, there's generally a lot of kind of separation between parts. So when you have a metal miniature that is holding its gun like this, all of this is... There's not like in a plastic miniature where you'll see daylight between your arms and armpits and stuff like that. You just won't see it. So you have things like that sort of thing. That's a metal miniature right there, painted 20 years ago. But you see how it's just all block detail. It's just a single piece of... Like, nothing was glued there. So, yeah, just, bear that in mind when it comes to painting them, that you will have the occasional part where that you'd think that it should end, and it just keeps going. It's okay if it keeps going. But yeah, just build them with super glue, and be careful, and you probably want to varnish them afterwards because they will chip. Metal miniatures just chip much easier than plastic ones. For your long painting sessions, do you sit a certain way or stretch or something to prevent shoulder pain or other issues? Been having lower shoulder pain on my longer painting sessions. Yes, I do. So I've talked about this before. Maybe what's going on for you is the position of your lighting. So I film all of my tutorials under these two lights. They are up here and up here. There and there. So I'm filling a large area of my desk with light. These are photography lights that I use all my filming, right? But they're up here and up here. What that means is I don't have to crouch under a light like this. I don't have to hold it at arm's length like that either when I'm under a light. If you've got a strip light or something like that, what you're probably better off doing is raising it up a bit higher so you're covering more of your desk so that you can move back. Because what I will do quite a lot of when I'm painting, you'll see it when when I do like the Monday stream or whatever, and I'm painting, I will paint like, and when I'm filming, you'll see it as well. Like I will be painting something like this, and I'll be like, so we're going to do that, and I'll do this for as long as I can at this kind of rate. But I'm not crouching under my lights at all, because once I'm in order to get a little bit of variation in my posture, what I will then do is, rather than being like this for the entire time underneath my lights, because they're quite directional, I lean back, and then I can paint back here, or I can just paint here. I don't have to crouch like this. Is 120 infantry a crazy endeavour for Astra Militarum? Yes, but it is exactly what you should do. My final plan for my Astra Militarum, James, is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. It's about the same, actually. I have my final plan is 40 Krieg, 40 Cadians, 20 engineers, 20 Kassakin, a lot of 6 heavy weapons teams, 3 field artillery, and 3 field ordnance, which is a lot more infantry plus all the characters. But yeah, no, that's my final plan. Will I play with that? Probably not, but I would like to. What I would recommend to you, though, James, don't try and do 120 all at once. Finish building the Illyrian Reavers tonight. Hopefully more fun to paint than they were to build. I'm sorry, Dahi. It's rough, isn't it? Horse heads going onto the bodies? Quite difficult. I was going 60 Cadians and 60 Krieg. Oh, you're a legend. You are a legend. So you can do 3 units of 10, 6 units of 10 or 3 units of 20. If you're doing this, James, that means that you will be able to conduct gentlemanly warfare with me and Joe. I'm not sure if Joe is still here, but you will be able to you will be able to wage gentlemanly warfare. Guard on guard. It's the way 40k should be fought. And I know, I've seen your mustache. You can twiddle your mustache. Could you give us the lowdown on Citadel Metallics? When do you choose Iron Warriors versus Lead Belcher, for example? The Iron Warriors is my favourite because you can go a lot bright. You can get a much sharper edge highlight, basically, than you can over Lead Belcher. You have to do more shading to Lead Belcher. I choose Lead Belcher or Iron Hand Steel as well. I choose them as the base if the silver is really bright. But most of the time the silver's not really bright. You'll notice when you look at the kind of colour schemes that Games Workshop makes, the silver isn't like this bright silvery sheen. It's quite industrial in many ways. And it's either like really dark heavy silver, or it's like sort of slightly grubby silver, or it's just darker silver with quite sharp highlights. And in that instance, Iron Warriors is perfect because it's the darkest silver that they make, which is why I much prefer it over Lead Belcher. It is also, I mentioned this before, it is an old Forge World paint, and it got reformulated into a Citadel paint when they did the Contrast Wave 1 or 2, something like that. Anyway, it got reformulated into the Citadel paint line. It's just better. It's better than Lead Belcher. It's just better paint. It's like Corvus Black is a better quality of paint than Abaddon Black, because it was an old Forge World paint that made it across. But yeah, essentially with metallics, it's a case of you can. I like Iron Warriors because it means you can always go brighter. With Lead Belcher, you have to do a lot more work to get it darker. Basically, is the answer. That's the long and short of it. But there you have it. Anyway, guys, it is now 25 to 11, which means we've been streaming for 2 hours. I hope you found this one useful and at least answered the question of when and why I use contrast medium versus Lahmian medium. If you missed it, it is at the beginning of the stream. You can always rewind this one. It will remain up as a VOD, but at some point in the future, when I get a moment, I will be taking what I've recorded tonight, which is this stream, and I'll put it into an actual video as well. But if you ever want to find these live streams, if you go to my channel page, there is a little category at the top. It says live. Click there. That's where all the live streams are kept. The other one is videos. Videos is just all the videos I've uploaded. Live streams is just a record of all the live streams that we've had. So it will remain if you want to wind back and look at the answer to this question. And like I said, it will come up on as another video at some point in the future. We've got a lot of Emperor's Children videos to get out, and we've got a video for Saturday that we need to get on with, and we've got some models to paint in honor of that, because it never ends. Oh, I appreciate you, chat. I love you. Thank you very much for being with me. And yeah, if you're enjoying this Wednesday technique paint along type thing, then let me know. We managed to make it through a whole one of these without being yelled at, which is better than last week. So yeah, great stuff. You're the best audience ever, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Tomorrow there will be more Emperor's Children videos, I'm afraid. If you're not into them, I'm sorry, but yeah, Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday, 2 more Emperor's Children schemes. And I'm gonna try to get. I'm gonna try for all of you lucky ducks who can get access to early content. I'm gonna try and get 1 or 2 of them edited up tomorrow as well for all of you. So yeah, keep an eye on the Discord. Lovely people. Anyway, hand of farewell. I shall wave it at you. Love you guys, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye for now.